So Jessica Jones season 3 has just released, and it is the final Marvel Netflix season, most likely ever, unless the shows get, revived on Hulu or Disney Plus or whatever. Jessica Jones season 3 is it. It is the final thing, and it was the one season of the shows that was kind of able to wrap itself up, I want to say, because of how The Punisher was pretty much finished by the time all the cancellation announcements started coming out. Jessica Jones, however, was still kind of, I think they were still filming when they heard about all this cancellations and stuff, so they kind of got the opportunity to write in endings and whatnot. And I will say that this season does feel kind of like a definitive ending for the show. The season does kind of end pretty abruptly, but I'm gonna chalk that up to them finding out pretty quickly that they kind of had to put an ending in due to all the cancellation announcements. And I will say that you aren't going to watch this with a big cliffhanger at the end of it, like Luke Cage or like Iron Fist or whatever had. This show does end pretty definitively. I'm going to try to keep this relatively spoiler free because the show's only been out for 2 days while I'm recording this, and I binge watched the entire season over the last 2 days. And this season was a huge step up from season 2. Season 2, I thought, was the worst Marvel Netflix show by quite a bit. It was the only Marvel Netflix season that it took me so long to just... I don't think I ever actually truly got into it. I think it never clicked with me, just nothing worked. Season 3, on the other hand, while I thought the first 3 episodes were pretty boring, I think overall it was a much stronger, better season. The villain this season is kind of like a Dexter-style character called Salinger, I believe his name was, who's kind of like a serial killer and whatnot. While he definitely wasn't a Kilgrave level villain. I'm not going to remember him as a Marvel Netflix highlight. And he honestly wasn't that memorable, but he was a lot better than the villain of season 2, which was Jessica Jones' mother. Salinger, he was an interesting villain. He wasn't great, but he definitely wasn't bad. He was interesting. But this season, he didn't have that much focus of the season. Like with season 1 of this show, Kilgrave was a huge focus. With Daredevil, you had Kingpin always being a huge focus. This season very much didn't feel like it was as focused on the villains. It seemed like it was more focused on the characters themselves. Like, there was more focus on Jessica Jones and on Trish and on Malcolm and on Jerry Hogarth than there was on any of the villains, whereas in season 1, you definitely could feel like Kilgrave and Jessica Jones were the two biggest characters. Everyone else was supporting them. In this, you have, Malcolm, Trish, Jessica Jones, Hogarth as the main characters, with the villains just kind of there to help forward the plot along. The season was very much focused on Patsy Walker, or Trish, as she's going down her path to become the comic book character of Hellcat. I was very, very, very surprised with how they dealt with this character and how they went with that story. I really wasn't expecting them to go the ways that I did. I didn't realize that so many people hated Trish. I actually like her character, and I was excited to see how they handled the Hellcat storyline. They did not handle it in the way that I expected. But that said, I enjoyed where they went with it. I was surprised, and I was like, props to you for going that way. The way that her story pans out really made me want another season, or just for her to show up in another somewhere down the line in the MCU, just because of how impressed I was with where they went with it. Like, it hits you all of a sudden that you're not watching what you thought you were watching with her character, and I was very impressed with that. I was also very happy with Malcolm's story this season. I can't remember, I'll be honest, I can't remember much from season 2, but I can't remember his story very well. I don't know if he had much of a story. In season 1, it was a whole druggy plot with Kilgrave and all that, and it was interesting, but season 3 is a completely new story for him, and I very much liked what they did with him. I was impressed. I thought he was kind of a shitty person at times, but I liked what they did. One huge down point of this season, in my opinion, was that of Jerry Hogarth. I love the actress who plays her, but the character itself is just so irredeemable and so annoying to watch. None of her story clicks. It was the exact same in season 2. I absolutely hated what they did with her character, especially since for pretty much all of season 2, her storyline was her own storyline, and it barely connected with the main storyline of the season, or it barely connected with any of the other characters. This season she kind of has two central plot lines, one that very much does connect into the other characters and into the overall story of the season, but I would say that Jerry's main storyline this season doesn't connect with anything else, and it's just not very fun to watch. It's basically just Jerry being a shitty person, and the show tries to make it out that we should sympathize with her because of her predicament, but she's such a a bad person that you don't want to sympathize with her because of that, and it makes it for a very frustrating storyline to watch and just all around not very good. And the fact is that is a huge part of the season is her storyline. Like for the first 5 or 6 episodes, she takes up half of every episode with her storyline that is completely unrelated to what Jessica Jones and what Trish is dealing with, which kind of makes the first couple episodes a slog. Like after the first 3 episodes, I thought this was going to be another bad season because of how bored I was. From episode 4 on, though, the season definitely kicked it up a notch, and from then on, it just kind of got better and better and better. Things would happen that I was interested in, characters would be introduced that I liked, and things like that. But yeah, the first couple episodes, because of Jerry, made it a huge slog. This season definitely put the focus back on Jessica Jones doing PI work and doing detective work again, which was another thing that was sorely lacking in season 2. They kind of avoided the whole Jessica is a PI story, but with this, they definitely went back into that, as Jessica really had to investigate Salinger and had to investigate where Trish was and all that sort of stuff, and that was really fun to watch again. It really made me miss how much I liked that part of the show. Like, every one of these Netflix shows have their own thing that they did really well. The thing that Jessica Jones always did really well was the detective aspect, so I was so happy they got back to that. There was another character introduced called Eric, who is a powered individual who can, he gets headaches whenever he's around a really bad person, or he gets a migraine when he's around a very bad person. I don't know if he's based on any particular Marvel character. He didn't ring any bells at me, but he was a very unique character. I was very worried they were going to go down a certain path with him, but they didn't. They kept him on this. They kept his character consistent the whole way through the season, and didn't throw in any mad plot twists like, oh my god, he's a villain or whatever, which I was so happy about. I was worried they were going to do what they did with Simpson, which a very likable character who starts off as somewhat of a good guy who you think could be a hero someday, but then he becomes the villain instead. I was worried they were going to do that with Eric, but they didn't, and I was happy with that. I like when they stay consistent with characters. But that's kind of all I can say about the season. It was a lot better than season 2. It was still nowhere near the highs of season 1, but it was an enjoyable overall season, and I think you'll have fun with it. If you enjoyed most of the Marvel Netflix shows, you'll probably enjoy this, and I would give this a 7.2 out of 10. But thank you very much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing, and I hope you have an awesome day.